Hey guys, welcome to another episode of 5 Question Friday, my favorite episode of the week. You guys ask me questions, I have a go at answering them. Let's get into it. First question, anonymous question. Remember, you can ask me questions anonymously if you don't want the world to know who you are. It's all good. First question is there such thing as too much content? If you put out too much content, do you risk annoying people or losing the vibe, that kind of stuff? Yes and no. Yes, there absolutely is such thing as too much content if the content is shit. It's a balance between quality and quantity, right? If you're putting out one post a week, but it's nonsense, annoying shit, people will get tired of it. If you're putting out 50 posts a week, but they're valuable posts, people won't get sick of it. So when it comes down to should I post once a day, should I post twice a day, should I post once a week, it just comes down to how much value you can bring. I'm posting these daily, but hopefully, fingers crossed, it's not annoying the shit out of you guys because I'm bringing value every single day. If I was just up here talking about life and what I had for lunch, you'd probably get sick of it. So, is there such thing as too much content? Yes, but it's a sliding scale between quality and quantity. As long as you focus on the quality of putting out good, valuable information to your audience, which for you guys is going to be the Gen Pop who are thinking about fitness, then it's all good. Next question from Dustin. Instead of capping classes, can I just add assistant coaches? So this is in relation to last week. I talked about capping classes being yes, a million times yes, to secure the quality of our class, right? So Dustin, the problem is this, the coach to member ratio, it's not universally scalable, right? So let's say that you accept that the coach to member ratio that you want is 1 to 10. One coach for every 10 people in class, right? That works. You know, one coach, 10 people, cool. 2 coaches for 20 people, cool. 3 coaches for 30, it doesn't work so well. You know, 10 coaches for 100, it absolutely doesn't work. It's because it's not a simple mathematical equation, right? Law of attraction means that those 10 coaches are still going to go see the same 30 people and you're going to have 70 people miss out. So the point of the story is, number one, from just a humanistic behavioral point of view, we can't just keep adding more coaches or assistant coaches to increase the class size. From a safety point of view, same. You only have so much room, you only have so much equipment. You've got to decide how many people can I train safely and with this equipment to make sure that there's no sharing of equipment, that everybody gets exactly what they pay for. And so adding assistant coaches doesn't change that. The other thing here is, when do you add the assistant coaches? You know what I mean? If you're not having people book in for classes and tracking those classes and capping those classes, when do you ask an assistant to come in? You know, maybe you ask the assistant to come in and there's bugger all people and now that assistant's wasted their time. Maybe you think you don't need the assistant in today because it's just another Thursday, but you forgot it's a public holiday and the classes are packed. You know what I mean? It's a variable that doesn't guarantee the level of service that we're trying to deliver to our members, and it's more work for you. So my preferred option, again, is cap your classes at whatever you think is reasonable. For me, I like 1 to 8, 1 to 9 coach to member ratio per class, never with more than 2 coaches or 20 members per class. Cap it at what you think and stick to your guns. That's how we deliver a premium service. That's how we separate ourselves from all of the other, you know, the Globo gyms and the other small unaffiliated boxes around. We have to separate ourselves somehow. They might have better equipment, they might have air conditioning, they might have a better location. We have to separate ourselves with a better community and better coaching. And that's how we do it. Awesome question, Dustin. Thanks, man. Next question, Glenn asks, I want to apply a system where my coaches get a percentage per month if they bring in a client for as long as the client stays. What percentage do I think is fair for the coaches? Really good question. I'm really glad you asked this, Glenn. I hear a lot of these where, you know, it might be, I want to give my coach a bonus based on retention, or I want to give my coach a bonus based on signups, that kind of stuff. Here's my problem. I'm all for bonuses. I love a good bonus, me. But it has to be in the control of the person getting the bonus, entirely in control, right? So let's talk about the sign up, right? Maybe that coach can be, is responsible for the initial sign up, right? Or maybe not. Maybe the coach goes out and tells the person to come in and that's as far as that coach goes. Now it's on someone else, maybe you, maybe another one of the coach, to teach a good intro class, to teach a good elements class or on ramp, and to get that person signed up, right? So that's not on the original coach, that's on someone else. and then to keep paying them a percentage for every month that member stays, that's definitely not on that coach, because that member is going to go to a bunch of different classes, not just that coach's, but there's also a bunch of other factors involved here. Is the gym clean? Are the toilets clean? Is there systems in place that are going to give a consistent experience? How does the owner interact? What kind of culture is there? All of these things absolutely affect how long the member stays, but that original coach has nothing to do with those things, right, for the most part. So what I'm saying is I have a coach earning or not earning a bonus based on a bunch of things that they have no control over, especially when we start talking about retention bonuses. Yes, the coaches teach classes, and classes are a big part of good retention, but so is systems and cleanliness and culture and all that other stuff that is mostly your responsibility as an affiliate owner, not their responsibility. So they end up either getting paid or not getting paid based on a bunch of shit that is not their responsibility. So the follow-up question is usually, well, Ty, what method do you use for bonuses? And a lot of you guys aren't going to like this, but I'm very simplistic with bonuses. My goal is to make a shit ton of money throughout the year, so at the end of the year, around Christmas time, I can just give them $1,000 cash and say thank you for being part of the family, right? Instead of but what about performance-related bonuses, Ty? What about performance-related bonuses? This isn't a corporate, Fortune 500 company. I don't want to be hiring people that need a constant stream of bonuses to perform. I want to hire people who are passionate about their job and perform because it's their job and because they love it. And obviously there's a bunch of things in there that play into that, to get them loving your box. You got to pay them well, you got to look after them, you got to respect them as humans and as staff. You got to give them career progression. That's all for another video. But long story short, do I believe in percentage-based performance bonuses? Usually no, because the coach doesn't have entire control over that metric. Cool. I know a bunch of you guys are going to have questions on that, so pop the questions below based on bonuses. Quick break, seminars. I'm really excited to be doing seminars again. I've had a little bit of a break off them. We've got a seminar coming up in Manchester at Reebok CrossFit Stockport, March 18th and 19th. Wait for this truck to go by. Extremely rude. Then we have another seminar in Manila, at CrossFit Ortigas in Manila in the Philippines, May 20th and 21st. Quick heads up, the Manchester seminar is almost sold out. I think there's only about 6 spots left. So if you want to get on it, I know it's not till March, but get on it now, because once it's sold out, shit happens. That's my seminars. Next question from Jeremy. This is another great question. I'm thinking about selling my affiliate. How do I value it? I'm really sorry that I'm not going to give a beautiful, clear, concise answer. We're going to go on a bit of a ramble. Stick with me here. So, Jeremy, there's a big problem with valuing your affiliate. Let's talk about valuing it first, and then we'll talk about the idea of selling an affiliate in general. There's a big problem with valuing an affiliate because with any business, there's a bunch of different ways to value it, right? You can use an industry multiplier, right? Which is where you take the yearly profit and then times it by a multiplier that's based on industry. Unfortunately, CrossFit by itself doesn't necessarily have one, so we have to take the gym industry, the fitness industry multiplier, which isn't very high. You can look at assets. There's a bunch. I'm not an accountant, but from memory, there's 7 or 9 different ways that you can value, different formulas you can use to value your business. Here's the problem. The seller is going to get their accountant to use whichever one suits them, whichever valuation metric or formula says that the business is worth $400,000. The buyer is going to get their accountant, right, or broker to use whichever formula suits them, which is going to be the one that says, well, actually, you know what, you don't have very many assets, and the assets you do have are degraded assets, and you've got a bunch of liabilities, so technically it's not worth anything and you should pay me to take it, right? So there's always going to be this disparity in valuations, right? So when it comes to valuing a box, it's certainly something I don't do. I know some of you guys ask me to do it. I don't do it, but get an accountant to get on board and then understand that your valuation and their valuation is absolutely going to be different. That's when you meet at the negotiating table and try and find some sort of middle ground. But let's go a bit deeper and talk about the idea of selling affiliates in general. Not every business is sellable. That's not kind of the goal. That's not really the way they're structured, right? If you're talking about a tech company, in Silicon Valley, then yeah, absolutely. Part of the goal for a lot of people when they open it is they're already thinking about how they're getting out. They're already thinking about selling. But the problem for CrossFit, for gyms, is it's kind of hard to sell, right? And here's why. Number one, you've got to look at your assets versus liabilities, right? And most people go, assets, well, we've got a bunch of memberships. Well, okay, firstly, those memberships aren't guaranteed, right? So let's say you've got 100 members, right? If those members aren't on contracts, which is what I highly recommend, they're not on contracts in terms of long-term 6, 12-month contracts, then it's kind of hard to sell them because the new owner can buy in, and I see this happen all the time. The new owner buys in, brings in a different culture, even if it's a better culture, it's different, and a bunch of members fuck right off, right? So you can't really guarantee those members, right? You can kind of sell them on as goodwill, but that's about it. And this is very different for every country, but then if you do have contracts, you say, look, I've got 100 members and they're all on 12-month contracts. Well, again, depending on what country and what state you're in, quite often you can't sell on those contracts, right? They sign that contract with you or with the original LLC, and you can't sell that on. Again, it's different for every country, but again, all you can really do is forward it on in goodwill, and that doesn't guarantee shit. So as a buyer, I'm looking at your 100 members going, well, those 100 members could leave next week when I come on board. So I can't really treat them like an asset, right? Then you say, okay, assets, we've got equipment. Unfortunately, the valuation of equipment, number one, whatever you paid for it 4 years ago, it's almost certainly cheaper now, right? The equipment's prices are dropping all the time. Number two, as soon as you put a barbell on a rack, that rack just lost half its value at least, right? Just because you spent $10,000 on a rig doesn't mean it's worth $10,000 now, right? The valuation is a real thing with equipment like this. Same thing with your rollers and your air dynes and your mats and all that shit. So quite often that $60,000 worth of equipment you originally spent on is really worth like 10 or 15, right? And I know this is hard news, but it's the truth. Then other liabilities, the biggest one usually is your overhead, specifically your lease, right? So if I look at a business, and this is what I see a lot, an affiliate that has, assets wise, maybe has $25,000, $30,000 worth of assets between the goodwill of the memberships and, by the way, the memberships themselves don't mean shit if you're not profitable, and the degraded value of the equipment. And then I look at your lease, and you're on you've still got 3 years left of a $50,000 a year lease. Well, that's a $50,000 liability that I'm buying into. So really, your liabilities outweigh your assets. And this is horrible to hear, but you should pay me to buy the business, not the other way around, right? This is just the hard truth. I want to say it again. CrossFits aren't the kind of business most of the time that we're going to sell. Gyms in general aren't the kind of business that you don't open them with the goal of selling them. And I know there's going to be a bunch of comments of people saying, oh, I sold my affiliate. All that means is you found a sucker. That's it. Or you're the narrow percentage exception that somehow were profitable. If you're wildly profitable, then we can have a chat. But if you're not profitable, and most boxes that sell aren't profitable, let's be real for a second. Most boxes that sell are just rats jumping off a sinking ship, right? Shit's not going their way. They're sick of doing too much for too long for too little, and they're trying to offload it onto any schmuck they can convince, right? And that's the truth. By the way, if you're a member or a coach at a gym and your owner is trying to sell you their box, have a long, hard look at it. Don't just buy it because you love the place. That's not a good enough reason. So that's my, last point. Last point on buying an affiliate, I always ask the question, how much do you want for it? And what could I do with that money in terms of a new affiliate? If someone wants $200,000 or $100,000 for their affiliate, I look at it and go, what could I do for $100,000, right? I could, what kind of lease could I get for a location? What kind of equipment could I buy? What kind of branding could I implement? And then what kind of help could I get? If they want $100,000 for a box with 150 members, I look at it and go, well, could I take that 100,000, spend 60 to 80 of it on the box, put 10 aside for a rainy day, put 10 aside to get business coaching. I know a guy to help me get there fast, to get to that 150 members. And then I own everything. I'm not getting their skeletons in the closet. I'm not, remember when you buy a box, you also buy all the shit associated with the box. And sometimes that's great and sometimes it's not so great. Cool. So a bunch of things to think about, but overall, I just don't really recommend selling your box and I don't really recommend buying a box. Cool. I know you guys are gonna have a bunch of questions, so drop them down in the comments below. Last question from Frank. Frank says, our coaches work 9 to 15 hours a week. Would you recommend hiring more coaches and giving less time to each, or keep it like it is? I'm gonna answer this in a bit of a broader way, Frank, if you don't mind. I'm a very big fan of limiting how many hours a week our coaches coach, right? Just because you as the affiliate owner are used to coaching 6, 8 classes a day, doesn't mean that's what our coaches should have to do. By the way, it's not what you should be doing either. I think it's pretty clear that the more classes you coach during a day, the worse they get slowly, right? Just my belief that after 3, maybe 4 classes for a day, they start to get shit. You can't say that class number 5 was as good as class number 2. But the members in class number 5 are paying the same amount as the members in class number 2, right? So you've got to give them the same value. So for this reason, I recommend limiting people. My personal preference is 3 classes per day. So that would be for a coach that's coaching every day, that would be 15 classes per week. Maybe 20 classes per week if they were really experienced and could, manage their energy expenditure a little bit better. But 3 classes a day I think is good. So for you, Frank, do I give these guys more time or do I bring on more coaches? I would probably say bring on more coaches, right? I want to lead this into another thing I've been talking with affiliates a lot about lately, which is I want to give my coaches a livable wage. So I have to give them more hours. That's very kind of in the box thinking. Your coaches don't need more hours, they need more money. So here's a wild idea, right? And some of you guys aren't going to like this, but here's a wild idea. How about you make more money so you can pay that coach more for the hours they're already doing, and then they have a livable wage without having to work them into the ground, right? Just a crazy idea. Have a think about it. So that is my 5 questions for Friday. So really quickly, is there such thing as too much content? No, it's all about quality. Instead of capping classes, how about adding assistant coaches? You got to think about the coach to member ratio and that it's not infinitely scalable. I want to apply a system where coaches get a percentage per month. Again, you can only reward people for something they have ultimate control over. Seminars in Manchester, March 18th and 19th. Manila, May 20th and 21st. Thinking about selling your affiliate, think again. And coaches, hours, 3 hours, 4 hours max a day. Don't burn them out. That's it. That's my Friday questions. I'm running out of questions desperately, guys. So please, in the comments below, drop a question. If you want your question to be anonymous, like a few of these were, then just shoot me a message privately, shoot the page a message privately, and I'll answer them anonymously. Besides that, have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week.